Lead generation isn't a mood or an emotion. It's not a marketing campaign or simply a good quarter. Today's episode, lead generation isn't a mystery. It's a system. It's a system, and it either exists in your business or it doesn't. If your current plan doesn't create new opportunities daily, then it's simply not solved. It's just wishful thinking. And in today's episode, we're going to deep dive into that. All right, everybody, welcome back, as always, to another Re-Education Experience podcast. I'm your host, Darren Langille. Today, we're doing something a little different. We kick off a focused, foundational, 5-part series with today's episode. This is a deeper dive into what I first introduced all the way back into episode 88, if you can remember it. And this was the agent cycle of life. I hinted at it, but I didn't go deep on it. By now, you understand the simplicity of the cycle that I created, which is we seed, we nurture, we harvest, we regrow, and then Mother Nature controls it all. And you likely realize every agent now is in a different season, which means you don't need to fix everything all at once. You just need to fix what's next, the most important part of your business. This series that I'm going to unpack here is going to help us do exactly that, one phase at a time. And when you revisit a new season in your business into the future, these episodes will stand here as evergreen content for you to come back to again and again as your business evolves through the seasons of your real estate career. We are going to begin here where most agents either struggle or this is where agents get lazy and they look elsewhere. This is the seed phase. The first problem you must solve. This is the root of everything else. Okay, friends, that intro will hopefully get you connected. Why this episode matters. One of the things I hear all the time, if I do good work, business is going to come. The truth though, if no one knows you, no one can work with you. So this concept of if I do well, it'll just keep coming, we need to reinforce this. You can have, as often people do, especially if they're part of big teams, big brokerages, have been mentored by strong folks, they can have the best listing presentations on hand, right? They might have really strong contract skills because they took courses, they listened to folks like Chris Voss, and they've gone through negotiations and contract strategies because their brokers are very important, and they spend a lot of time going the I's and dotting the T or crossing the T's. They may have a really cool tool set, meaning like most brokerages do today, give us a really good value proposition for an awesome CRM that when I started my business, we had to pay a fortune for. But if no one is talking to you, none of all of this stuff matters, yet it's what takes so much of people's energy that I want to change. Seed is the phase where you create the opportunity. This is where those conversations begin that we've talked about, where the relationships start to form, where that future client first sees the present you showing up. This episode is about that ownership. It's about making peace with the fact that your income and then your freedom and your confidence all begin with the conversations. Nothing more, nothing less. And here's the beautiful part. When we finally commit to seed, the stress starts to lift because you're no longer just hoping, will that client come out of the woodworks? Will that referral come my way? You're just working in the seed process, knowing that the future stuff will come. I've talked about seed before. I've talked about it's the phase and it's the art of lead generation. So I'm not going to go into that, but I wanted to introduce you to something here called the client pyramid. If I've been kind of like unpacking things, I've developed a bit of a hierarchy of needs that agents need to go through to take people through to future clients. And I'm just calling it the client the pyramid. So I'm going to flip over here to another page just so I can share with you the visual on this. This is going to be a 5-part pyramid. Okay, and we're going to build it from the bottom up. All right. So phase number 1, the base, right? This is the widest. This is the strongest. This is the thing that creates the foundation. I'm going to call it the base so you can get that visual. Giving value to an audience. As you know me, I like to break things down to the simplest terms. The base of the pyramid, when we talk about lead generation, seeding, is do I have a practice of giving value to an audience, period. See, This is the base that gets formed or doesn't. It gets crumbled or it washes away when the rain comes and it's sand grains, right? You show up consistently with things like social posts, hosting events, getting in their inbox, entering in their mailbox. You offer value. You become the thing I always share, which is giving your big, warm hug to your community. Your community, which is those people that have an ability for you to reach. Okay? So this is the first base. Just think of it as value to your audience. And if you think about that, I know a lot of us do, and I want you to think about it in the terms of a pyramid. Could this base of energy, effort, tangibility hold up the business into the future? Could it hold this whole thing up? Or is it kind of like, oftentimes people do other shapes, like a diamond, where the base is really rickety, and you think the meat of your business has to come in the middle. It looks like a diamond, and that thing's toppling over. As pretty as it is, it'll topple over. All right, so that's base layer number one. The second layer that we want to talk about is the hierarchy. Is once you've secured a base, you kind of earn the right to level up, don't you? You can now step up. And what is layer two? Well, this is conversations. Okay? This doesn't happen unless you give value to people that you know and have ability to touch point, right? The value of the base sparks interaction. The value here sparks or it doesn't, right? It sparks the interaction. Someone replies to your post. Somebody asks you a question at a networking event. Somebody shows up to your event. The cool thing here is this is now a connection, right? The value is being given. That's the base. The second layer is the conversation. Follow me so far? One earns to the other. All right. What would be layer three then? Layer three of our pyramid is a system to track it. This, for me, a lot of people will go ahead and think about the CRM and the tech, like I talked about, as stage one. It's kind of like I built my logo. I did the listing presentations. I got masterful at negotiations. Yet you've never done anything to generate a base that drives conversations into your world. And then if you've got conversations for the first and foremost, now you're like, oh, I have something to manage. And that's why I've thrown the CRM higher up. This is your system to track it all. The contact now with the outreach, because of the question, because of wherever you had this conversation, gets saved. Notes are finally added. The context of your conversation is stored and set up for future. See, that's the hierarchy for which I want you to think about this business. One problem creates another problem, creates another problem. But let's not solve problems on layer three when we haven't adjusted our base yet. Okay? Level 4. This is active clients now. See, if you've got all of this running, the base puts up their hand, they have conversations with you. The base continues to be the base. It keeps holding things up. The value keeps being given. And conversations sometimes need things documented because you've learned motivation. You've learned timelines. You've learned intention. That goes into the CRM. In the CRM, you follow up and you follow up and you follow up and you tag them and you work with them appropriately. Eventually, if all of that happens, hands do come up and say, I want to work with you. And now you actually have layer 4, active clients. Some of these contacts are ready to finally move and they're ready to choose you. Now you get to serve them. And then the top one, the 5th one, is what I call this is satisfied clients. This is the top of the pyramid. You deliver on what they hired you to do. You close the listing, you close the sale. They refer you because of their experience. And then this pyramid starts to feed itself over and over again. But here's the thing. Most agents want to live at the top of the pyramid. They're just thinking active, satisfied clients. They want to live at the top without building the bottom. They just jump right over thinking it's going to be coming. Even just today, I had an agent within my team talk about transitioning out of the industry, transitioning out of the team. Well, guess what? The base is not being served. The conversations are not being had. The CRM he's paying for is wasting his money. And now at this point, he's got no active clients. Right? They want closing without conversations. They want referrals without you reaching out. Right? Clients without contacts. See, seed is the base, it's the foundation. And if you ignore it, the whole structure just collapses. And this, to me, this is not real estate, right? If we talk about what we just did. Look at Starbucks. Howard Schultz built a global brand. We've talked about him a few times. He spent time in each store listening, adjusting, watching, connecting. The model didn't start with the ads they're running today. It started with conversations in that shop, learning one customer at a time in Seattle, one store at a time as he grew. That is seed in action. All right, you guys? So that hopefully lands pretty well for you, gives you a little tangible thing. And I want you to recreate that pyramid in your mind and challenge yourself. Where am I going right? Where am I going wrong? Where are my jumping steps? Let's talk about how to get this going into your business. Building your daily seed practice. See, you've seen the pyramid, but now we need a little executional system, something that you can just bolt to and run with, right? And I kind of just, again, I wanted to give you as simple frameworks as I can. So why don't we talk about a simple 4-step seed executional system that you can just take and run, right? Step 1, right? At this point, you've seeded, right? The place to store people, right? You need a home for the humans. You need a home, and that's the CRM with the contact information, with the contacts. We got to move from sticky notes. We need to move from our phone. We need to move from our old Yahoo and AOL mail. No more memory lapses, because when you're seeding consistently, which is what this is all about, you will really quickly create cracks in your business. When the conversations are rolling, you need to instantly buy into the concept that the CRM is where I'm going to go. And with it, so if we buy into this, because your seed efforts have created those conversations, even if it's one a day, it's time to jump into managing it, because we want to stop the bleed. Okay? Step 2 is the daily practice with it. Seeding isn't a one-off campaign. This is a ritual to your life, to the lifeblood of your business, right? Adding things to the CRM, showing up into the CRM daily to see where things are at. Which follow-ups do I need to take on? What notes do I need to update? Because Johnny sent me an Instagram DM and it added some context to our conversations. This is also how we learn who to reconnect with. And it's this habit that we need to build over and over again, right? The habit book, James Clear, Atomic Habits. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Atomic Habits, James Clear. It hits the nail on the head, friends. So every time we seed, you're voting for your future self. You're voting for the future business that you're looking for. You're voting for that future peace of mind that you've got enough running. So you need a daily practice with your CRM to ensure that the cracks are filled. All right. When I pull agents, this is the thing that probably shows up at the least percentage done per day. They find every other excuse in the book to do something else other than dive into the CRM, as basic as it is or as complex as it is, and do something with it. It's sad. So step 3, if we're in the practice of the CRM, a one-to-one contact is simply step 3. Now, I know everybody wants the hack. Everybody wants to, do one thing and it hits 100, right? But we can't forget in today's world that the direct touches, the calls we make, the DMs we drop, the texts we share, the videos, the audio messages, the invites on our email, the invites into our mailboxes, these are your seeds. And every one of them builds trust for you. Or if you just ignore this bucket altogether, you lose that opportunity and you're relying on step 4 without, step 3, which I will talk about and again. So if step 1 is CRM buy-in, step 2 is the daily practice to use and update it. Step 3 is one-on-one contacts have to be in your world, as techy as you want to be or as old school, it all works. Step 4, friends, is one-to-many messaging, right? And again, too many people in our lives, in social media, in today, will skip all of these steps and think if I just stay busy one-to-one messaging, i.e., if I just post a video a day, if I just drop a cool branded social post per day, my seeding is done. and they don't step into step 1, 2, and 3. See, this is things like mass emails, right? Mass nurturing, email blasts we send out kind of from a branding perspective, client events we host, social media updates, like I just said, keeping your whole list in this kind of top-down hug. But if that is all you have running in your seeding, you are not going to build a business that you want, right? We need to build the list, and we need to love on the list. Let's make this into some real numbers for you guys. Now, I did talk about this in the falling in love with the right thing episode, but I wanted to go a little deeper since we're kind of forcing you through this seed concept to make sure that you, with the pyramid and this 4-step solution for you, you can actually win. So here's the math that I might remind you with. It takes about 50 conversations, new ones, to close one deal. Now, coaches will go as low as 40, and some I've seen go as high as 80, right? The higher the number, that means more conservative they're being, which means the more effort you need to create one deal. I'm using 5. I have 50, and I've been using them for a while. Say my goal for the year is 10 deals, okay? My goal is 10 deals. 50 conversations times 10 deals equals how many? 500 conversations per year, all right? Now, what I'd like to share is let's remove the month of December, because it's really hard to have a new conversation on December 1st and to close a deal within that given year. And a lot of us are balancing our goals based on an annual. So let's just say December doesn't count. We need to subtract that. So we really only have 11 months to work with to achieve those 500 conversations. Now, I also want you to be real with yourself. And I want to ask yourself how many weeks, so we're going to remove December. So I'm just putting my notes down. And I want to ask you, how much vacation are you going to take? Let's say 4 weeks. Round it to a month. We're going to take about a month off from actively pursuing my business. So that leaves us with, let's minus December and let's minus those 4 weeks. So we're kind of down to 10 productive months. You follow me? So if I've got 500 conversations, I'm going to divide it by 10 productive months. You basically now have the 500 divided by 10 equals 50 conversations per month that you need to have in your seeding activities, everything we talked about. Now, there's 4 weeks-ish in a month. That's going to say divide that by 4, and we end up with 12.5 convos per week. All right? 12.5 per week. If you're going to work 5 days a week, meaning proactively growing to have these, divided by 5 now, and you are at 2.5 new combos per day. How about that? If your average commission check is 10,000, right? That's 100K a year, right? Which means every conversation now is worth $200. Nice little monetary chase when you're out there doing these seed activities, right? The root of trying to build your business. Every day that you do your 2.5, you're building your $100,000 business. Every day you skip it, you're setting fire to about $500, right? Those conversations. See, back in the day when I was running Redline, this team, my Darren Langille real estate team, I printed fake bills. And at that time, in our market, with our average sale price, every conversation that was made was worth $45. So I had bills with my face printed on it. It was hilarious. And I put Darren's face on here. That's me. And I put a $45, and I gave them all a stack of these. Right? I wanted to make it tangible. If agents were making their calls, they would put one of these bills into their I called or I talked to pile. And then if you didn't, you moved it to the basically I just burned it pile. And they get to see physically that the money they were burning, right? This might seem super silly, but I think it's incredibly effective because it creates that visible tangibility to things. It's hard to miss days and then catch back up because we all know lead generation and creating these conversations is one of the hardest things agents do. You have to make it tangible. You have to make it visual. And that's the mindset that I wanted to paint with this simple exercise. A real world example that I can pull that isn't like one of the big ones was I was looking into this, and I used ChatGPT to help me find something that would work. And there was this sushi chef, okay? Hiro, oh no. He was world renowned for his sushi. He became legendary in his thing, not by trying to scale this sushi joint beyond into multiple restaurants, but he did it by repeating the same daily practices that he developed to kind of cut this sushi for decades, right? Whether it was, it's funny, massaging octopus in the right way, right? Whether it was how he was preparing the rice, whether it was listening to the feedback of what the customers loved. He did all of these things over time, repeatedly, and it created such a powerful kind of like dream level amount of sushi that it got him to where he would be. Those are those seed leading indicator actions that it takes to drive future mastery, right? The discipline to just show up, to be world-class, to care like that, doesn't happen because he's spraying and changing. It was tangible, it was real, and he did it every time. So seeding, if we're gonna make this real, like he just did with that sushi, just picture massaging octopus before you feed it to your people, right? Making it tangible. Belongs in your calendar, guys. It belongs in our calendars. It's gotta be scheduled. And it should be the first thing in your day you do, right? The mental energy that we have in the beginning of the day is highest in the morning. After lunch, as we all know, the day starts to own us. We get tired, whatever we've eaten, it's usually a bad choice. And then the whirlwind of what your client life starts to come and peak up. I want an appointment, I want a show in, the phone calls come in. The other agents are waking up from their slumber and their stuff sending you, right? The mental energy that you have, that willpower bucket is best in the morning. It's full here in the morning. But over time, you see that this depletes. And if you leave things like seeding, when your willpower bucket is down here in the afternoon, you're going to have a really hard time completing it with the energy you need. So we need you to block your seed hour or hours. And then we got to get specific, because I've had agents go ahead and start a calendar rhythm. And they've gone ahead and said, I'm going to block time in here, and you make these nice little inserts. But they don't get specific enough. They might just say follow-up hour or power hour, which we've heard. But I want you to get specific, because when we're talking about seeding, and we've talked about the core four, the plus four, the success triangle, we've talked about all these things about how you can build specific lead sources into your business. I want you, for every one of these time blocks, to get incredibly tangible, so that if I showed up and I looked at your calendar and I didn't know what type of business you were running, it would be detailed enough that I'd say, oh, Sally is doing this today to those people with that theme. And that's what we want. Call five past clients to check in on their summer plans, right? DM 3 new leads from last week's open house and to deliver them a market update for the house that they told me or the community they live in, right? Send video to my top 10 in my database about the giveaway I'm having in the VIP client event. Right? That is much more tangible for you, and that helps us. One other thing that I suggest too, if switching between what I just shared is some was warm and some was cold outreach, if switching behind those two hats is difficult for you because it's like a different mindset when I'm talking to people I know versus reaching out to have the energy to go and cold call, it's a different script, it's a different objection. So if you want to get away from that power of like the lack of efficiency of switching between them in your power hours, why don't you say Monday and Wednesdays are for warm, and maybe say Tuesdays and Thursdays are for cold, and then maybe you have a little slot in your calendar just kind of as a catch-all for anybody that has responses that come in. So you need to consider this into your ritual, and you need to honor the energy where it's best for you, and then you just need to execute with that precision that we were talking about. Is that what is actually the specific in my thing? It's not hard, right, to imagine when somebody does these simple practices, but with a habit that things change. And I can think back to a coaching client that I had in South Carolina, where she had come to me and she was already doing 35 to 40 deals. So already well ahead of most listeners here today as a solo agent, top 1% of the industry in her market. But she wanted to do more, right? She wanted to double it. She said, I want to do 80. I was like, okay, 80 deals, like it's doable. But what we did is we reviewed her business, we reviewed the systems, and things were pretty strong. Her back end was clean. The follow-up she was doing was great. The client work that she had was pretty decent. Her brand was strong. So how are we going to double this? We looked at the calendar and I realized that she's got opportunity in her calendar still for more seating. It wasn't that she was slacking. Not at all. She was doing really well with what she's done. But if she wanted to hit 80, we just needed to put more seeding into her world, and everything else was running. It could handle it. And eventually, in future, she brought on agents and other things, but there was room for her to go, right? So we recommitted to it. And in her case, it was quite traditional. It was community farming and door knocking in areas that she had business in. And the conversations flew. The high caliber people she met grew. Her list got stronger, and that simple traditional work that she executed on daily moved her up. And now she is in the 80 to 90 deals per year and is growing a team. She solved the first problem, not the funnest one, not the prettiest thing, just the one where we knew it needed the most. So as you're considering your rituals and your habits and you're listening to this, I always want to leave you with a few thoughts. What if you stop searching for your next tool and you just got great at creating those 2.5 conversations a day? Now, if your goal is 200, maybe it's 5 conversations a day. If your goal is 300, then you add another 2.5, right? What if you focus more on being known and getting that message out there, building that value, the base of the pyramid, versus just being perfect and only doing it intermittently? What if you finally made peace with the fact that success in this business starts with the seeding, not the other things you may be distracted in, right? See, we don't scale trust overnight. Even Starbucks, as trusted as they are today, didn't. It started with that store, that darn Seattle store, with all that intention that Howard Schultz put into it. One experience, one conversation, now global empire. All right, the seeding part for many of us is not the sexiest part of the business, right? It's not always the most scalable part of the business yet, but it is sacred, right? It is sacred. And it's the foundation that your business is begging you for. And that's why I wanted to go deeper on this podcast, to spend some energy to go deeper with some of the things you've already heard from the podcast, and to give you the pyramid visual, give you the 4-step action plan, and then to reinforce the idea. So this is the first of the 5 episodes of the Agent Cycle of Life deep dive. Whether you're just starting or scaling, this is where it's going to begin. It's seeding, which is typically most agents' problems. And if you feel like you're glossing over this topic, but you're not seeing the results that you want, please go back and listen to this. Find the power and the simplicity that I share, because it is that simple. Once again, if you want to join us on the Rome workshop, which is a live free training, just go to reeducation.school. Join us inside Rome so that every Tuesday following the podcast release on Fridays, we get together at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We talk through it. So again, hopefully this has been great. Hopefully I've planted something like a seed that's going to last and grow roots in your career, and you can take action on this podcast. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you again next time.